This is a tutorial for refilling blendable markers. It works with any of the major brands of blendable markers. You have your Prismacolors, Chartpaks, Copics, Utrecht, any of the brands. What you want to do is make sure you get the right solvent. It's one of the things that you'll be needing. For most of the brands, denatured alcohol will work. It's the solvent that they use to dissolve the pigment inside the markers. For Chartpak, it's xylene or xylol, and that is a little bit hard to find but can also be found at hardware stores. You're also going to want some kind of syringe or eyedropper for getting the alcohol out, and a small container for alcohol. And I usually keep a piece of paper under the working space just to keep things a little bit clean. So first thing I'm going to do is open the alcohol up, okay, and just pour a little bit inside of the glass container. Whatever you don't use, you can usually pour back. It's not, it require an intensive amount, but you do prefer not to have to put more in. Second part is I'm going to remove the tips from the markers. You want to use the large tip of the marker. I usually like to dunk it in the alcohol to start with, just because if it's really dried out, that will help lubricate the felt tip so that you don't tear it. Once you're done, you pull that out and you kind of want to leave this aside. This is a clear blender, so I really want to keep that separate. And then you're just going to do that with all the marker tips. You can see this one's extremely old. Doesn't have a lot of life left in it. So hopefully we're going to give it a little bit more mileage. I leave the markers pointing up off to the side. That way, if there is any residual solvent inside, it's not going to make a huge mess. So pulling out all of the chisel tips, just kind of leaving those alone. You do want to make sure you don't forget which color is which. If you have some similar colors for your tips, that can kind of create some issues. So removing all of the chisel tips and just kind of leaving those off to the side. Next thing I'm going to do is put the syringe in the alcohol and just put a good amount in there. And then I'm going to, one at a time, just put some of this inside. Now it's hard to know how much, because you don't know what the needs are for the marker. Inside of the marker is usually a cotton or felt center that holds that alcohol so that the marker has a good well of alcohol. So you just kind of put that in there until it overflows. Like I said, each one is a little bit different. You don't know how much it's going to take. Also, you put the alcohol in the top. Well, that alcohol needs to saturate all the way through the bottom to make sure you get the best saturation. So some of these markers that are a little bit older are going to need a lot more saturation than the others. I'm going to leave those up off to the side just while I continue to work. That will give the solvent more time to reach the center. Just continue to add alcohol until reach a pretty good saturation level inside of each marker. Okay, once you're done, you're going to go back and take the appropriate tip, and I like to dip the back of it in the alcohol just to really get that soaked and help lubricate it as well. And just kind of push it back in the center. Put the cap on, and then I like to leave it vertical just again to give it more time for the solvent to dissolve all the way through. So I'll put the tip in the alcohol, get it nice and wet, get it back in the marker. We'll just kind of see how it goes. Put the cap on. So once I'm done, I'm going to wait a few minutes to try to see if they're any good, just to give that alcohol some time to permeate all the way through the marker. So we'll come back in a few minutes and see how. Okay, it's been a few minutes. We're going to come back and see how our markers go. This was fairly dry black. It got left open, but there was a lot of pigment inside, and so you can see that that one really made an improvement. The blender is always going to work because that one just needs more alcohol no matter what. Some of your other ones, that one's working pretty good, might have just used up all of their pigment. They might just be so old that you're not going to get a lot of life out of them. It seems a little bit better, but probably could use a little bit more alcohol. Maybe it's just worn out its welcome. So there you go. You can sometimes get a little more mileage out of your markers, sometimes not. Hopefully that tip can help you in your art making.